I'm down here in the corner. We've got this accounting session set up. So I asked a few weeks ago if you first off enjoyed these sessions, and you all said yes. And I said, okay, then what do you want to hear and learn about? And the number one overwhelming response was accounting and bookkeeping. So we are lucky enough that we have some amazing accountants and bookkeepers who focus on our industry that are part of this group and who agreed to be here today. So we have 4 of them on for us today. And I've got 3 introductions, but because we have an extra person, I'm going to go ahead and throw a curveball at all of them and ask them to go ahead and introduce themselves. So we'll have Donna go first, Michael go second, Melissa third, and then Jackie fourth. One of the things you'll see happen throughout this event is you'll see my image drop off the screen and Jackie jump up. We can only have 4 people on at one time. So when you see me down, that means the other 4 are talking. And we're here to learn about accounting and bookkeeping. So without further ado, I'll let Donna begin by introducing herself, then Michael, Melissa, and Jackie. So go ahead and take it away, Donna.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for sponsoring this event. I am Donna Bordeaux. I am a CPA with campgroundaccounting.com. My husband, Chad, and I are both CPAs, and we focus solely on working with campground owners and RV parks all across the country. We have a bit of a unique perspective in that we are campground accountants as well as travelers. So we just got back from being on the road about 7 weeks, and we like to go out and see what's out there across the country. And I feel this gives me a really nice perspective to help campground owners because I see what's going on and I understand the challenges that they face as well as their guests. So I look forward to helping you navigate some of your challenges today, and I'm always available if you have questions as well.
Hi, my name is Michael Elliott. I'm a CPA licensed in the state of Ohio. I am one of the owners, along with my wife, of an accounting firm called Camp and Park Accounting. We too are specialized exclusively in serving campgrounds and RV parks, also here in the great state of Ohio, but also throughout the country. We specialize in providing accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, consulting, tax services, basically a full service accounting firm specifically dedicated to serving campgrounds and RV parks. We love the business. That's why we got into that and decided to specialize in this business. Just thankful for the opportunity, Mark, to be here, and hopefully we can add some value to the folks that are listening in today.
Hi, my name is Melissa Cummings. I am owner of Camper Review in Texas. Before I bought this, or my husband and I bought this campground in 2015, my background is accounting, CPA in Texas, did a lot of public accounting, bookkeeping type stuff. So I've just brought that knowledge with me to the campground.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm the owner of Lakeview Business Solutions. I'm out of Minnesota. I've been in accounting about 20 years and recently changed my focus to the campgrounds because we do a lot of camping ourselves. So I have a lot of experience speaking with the owners and what their needs are. And I saw a need there in our state.
Bring my mic back up. This is great information. We have a lot of knowledge in this group. I'm running a whole, it's like I'm running a concert board here with all these buttons I'm clicking. So I apologize if I seem distracted. I'm doing all this clicking on the back end. But anyways, the whole reason I'm doing that is because I want to bring you a ton of information and a ton of useful information. So the first question I want to leave to discussion here is, what is the primary thing owners should think about when they're thinking about accounting and bookkeeping? And if they were to ask a question, or if they should leave here with one question about their business, what should that question be? So I'll throw that away and go ahead and take it away and have that conversation.
So I'll kick it off, Mark. From our perspective, working with a lot of different campgrounds and RV parks, I think the number one thing that we like to see campgrounds and RV parks do is make sure that they're staying up to date with their numbers. It can be really difficult in a business that, especially if you're up here in the Midwest or in a lot of places of the country where it's kind of a crammed season, it can be difficult to stay up to date on your numbers. And so we like to really caution campground owners that it's important to not get behind, because a lot of bad things can happen when you start to get behind in your books. And so understanding where you're at throughout the year from a financial perspective is probably the first thing that I like to reiterate to owners.
I'll tack on to that as well. The other thing that I like to do is to remind them that they have to protect their investment. Most campground owners have made a huge investment, and in many cases, their life savings is invested in that campground and their retirement as well. So we want to make sure they're protecting that investment and taking every step that they can to get the largest return on investment on that investment that they've made in that campground. And that involves a little more than just keeping things going day to day, riding the tractor, following the guests around. We want to make sure that they have a pinpoint focus of what their next step in the roadmap is and what their time frame is in being in that campground, because there is no reason to buy a campground other than to sell it one day or pass it along to their heirs. So we have to keep our focus on that, even though the day-to-day is a very big distraction. And we want to make sure that they can have some fun along the way. Most people have got into this campground business because they thought it was a fun thing to do. And it can become a chore if they lose sight of that fun and having their family there with them. So that's one of the things we remind them in protecting their investment.
Yep, and I agree with that. The couple clients I have, that's what they've had lost sight of when I first joined on with them. And it's important to keep your campground itself and keep busy that way, but you have to know where you are financially as well.
Okay, I'm back up here. So now I'm gonna throw a question at all of you now that's going to be really specific on this. And let me kind of, I'll repeat what I just heard and let's see if we're on the right track. So you're basically saying accounting and bookkeeping is about making sure your money matches up with what's coming in the door and that you have a plan long-term on how that money is going to go back into the business, into the personal finances and grow this overall enterprise. One of the biggest challenges, and Donna kind of hit on it, is a lot of folks get into the campground business because it's fun. They own an RV. They're like, hey, I can do this better than the other people I see doing it. And let me go ahead and try it myself. So I'm going to throw this question at Melissa, because you have the accounting background and you own an RV park now. So with that background, what do you see that's really important to owners to consider that they may not be doing now? I mean, is it as simple as online bookings or tracking their inventory? I mean, what is it that folks may be overlooking in their day-to-day operations from that standpoint, from an accountant standpoint?
Well, I know that when we purchased the campground, there were no online bookings. There was no inventory control. There were no records. I mean, the records were really hard to come by. So trying to piece that together, online bookings made our life so much easier. The previous owners and owners before that thought it would not, that they were losing control if they put it out there to online bookings. But it's helped us so much. I think that as with any business, I think I'm lucky because I have that accounting knowledge going into it. But I think that I like that we're having a forum like this, because I think that campground owners really need to reach out and ask some questions about accounting. I think things that seem straightforward may not be: assets, liabilities, income statement items, what this purchase counts as, that kind of stuff. I just think that getting some help, knowing that myself, has been very helpful. And I think that sometimes you can get in trouble along the way if you don't reach out to somebody and ask for some help.
All right, hey Donna. So you and Michael, you handle accounting and bookkeeping for parks, around the country, multiple parks. What are the biggest things you see across the board that when you first go in and help a park out, what is that one thing that they're missing that if they could do it today, it would make their business so much better? What is that one thing you give them and they can take away from this session and say, hey, if I do this now, things will be better in a month from now?
I can say from a technical aspect, it is online bookings, 100%. that if there is one thing you can do for your park that will make an extraordinary difference, it is online booking implementation and liking it. All right. Don't try to circumvent the system and still handle all the calls and the bookings and make people call you. An online form is just not going to cut it anymore. You must have a solid online booking system integrated into your website and allow the internet to help you grow. It is the number one thing I've seen. I've gone into parks who have not adopted an online system, and I'll be quite honest, most of them have told me there are so many choices, we just don't know where to go. Everybody, everywhere we turn, says our product's the best, ours is really great, ours will help you, and they get so overwhelmed that they can't make a decision. So I help them focus and make a decision and implement that online booking system. And we have seen upwards of anywhere from 35 to 85% growth in 1 year. So that is the number one thing I'd recommend they do. And just kind of the big wrapper around this is that you have to step out of your own way. You can't be stuck in what you like and what you want. You have to be able to open your eyes to other perspectives and ideas that you might have thought somebody told you at one time didn't work. It might work for you now. So opening your brain to other ideas and implementing things that you might not know 100% will work, and taking that risk is going to really help and really pay off.
Yeah, and I'll kind of tag off of that a little bit. So there's a couple of things that we would like to kind of address with park owners when we start working with them, and we can approach it from two lenses. We can approach it from the operational lens, which is kind of what Donna was talking about with the reservation system, which is operational focus. There's also some kind of fundamental accounting things that we can also look at. But from an operational standpoint, I totally agree with Donna that the reservation system's looking at making sure that whatever you're using for a reservation system makes sense for you and your park. That's absolutely something that we've seen a lot of parks be able to take advantage, especially with online reservation systems, etc. But one of the things that I've been encouraging a lot of parks recently to do is to really step back and ask yourself who you are and who you want to be. Because a lot of parks, I find they've bought a park and they just kind of muddle through it, running the same business model as the folks before them had. And I think that it's really important for business owners in general, but campground owners specifically, to really sit back and look at strategically, who are we as a campground and who do we want to be? Who do we want to serve? And I think once you've kind of understood that, you need to kind of figure out what you need to do to get there. And one of the most important things that we always encourage owners to do is to talk to your customers and the folks you want to be the customers at your park, because they're going to provide you the insight about what you need to do to improve. They're going to probably provide you insight about what kind of reservation systems you need to use. There's a lot of insight to be gained there. And then I would say just from real briefly, from an accounting perspective, it's important for campground owners to understand the flow of the money, to understand where money comes in and where it goes out, and to be making sure that they're tracking that properly. Because as a business owner, it's really easy just to wake up one day, there's no money in the bank, and be like, where did it go? So that's what we would say from an accounting perspective.
Okay, so now I threw it at the professionals. So now I'm going to throw it at the operators, Melissa and Jackie. You're running parks right now and working at parks. What do you think, or is the feedback they just gave us right on the money, or is there stuff you can add to that conversation that owners should really think about taking away from this on day one? And also, let me add that if you have any questions for those that are watching right now live, feel free to post it up. It gets thrown in a feed here, and I can throw your question up, and you can send it out to the experts. So, Jackie, let's start with you. What is your immediate feedback to owners that if they think about this thing or apply this one thing, it'll make a material change in their business?
Is the top of the list, the online reservation. The other part that I've encountered at several parks is they have too many people, too many family members, all doing basically the same thing. Nobody's keeping track of the financial side of it, nobody's keeping track of who's coming and going. They just assume everybody else is doing it because they're trying to run it as a family and keep their family unit together, which is great. They're supposed to be there and having fun, but they need to assign duties to people to make it run a little smoother.
I think that's a really good point. When we bought our campground, and I'm not sure it's that we didn't want to assign duties, but the operation sucks you in. And so setting aside that time where I say I've Monday's payroll day for us, and I've assigned myself, it's an admin day for me. So that's a bookkeeping day for me. That's the day when all of those receipts that have been piling up that need to go into QuickBooks get put into QuickBooks. This is our 5th summer with our park, and this is the first year that I've sort of kept up with it. I mean, encouragement to the campground owners out there. It's an operational and a customer service oriented business, and customers need stuff 24/7 all summer long. So summer is a really difficult time to do that. But we just try to make baby steps, try to set aside some time that is your bookkeeping time. And as they were also saying, make sure that one person does that. Since I'm a CPA, before I came to the campgrounds, I'm the natural one in the family to be doing that.
So when we're looking at the CPA work, the accounting work, the bookkeeping work, it all kind of plays together, right? So the and actually, so I'm going to be dumb here because I'll be honest, I'm dumb about accounting and bookkeeping. So I'm really good to be doing this because I don't know anything about it. So if somebody's watching this saying, yeah, accounting, bookkeeping sounds boring, tell me why it's not boring, why it is important, and how it should work in their business. So actually, I'll throw it at Melissa. You go ahead and take it, and then Donna, you could follow up with Melissa and fill that in. So go ahead, Melissa. Why is accounting and bookkeeping not boring, and why should they be paying attention to it?
Well, I mean, I guess for some people it may be boring. To me, it's exciting to see. The exciting part of it is how much money we can put into a project and what the return on that investment is. So it's more the finance side of it that I would say is exciting. I don't know, even being a CPA for all those years, I can't say that day-to-day bookkeeping is exciting. But if you're thinking about it in terms of goals and what your goals are for your family, it's exciting to see year-over-year numbers. I constantly, all summer long, I look back to see what my year-over-year numbers are. Are we up? Are we down? And then move on to how to change that if we've gone down, or what is the difference maker if we've gone up. So those are the exciting part of it. Maybe the numbers aren't, but you have to have the numbers in there or you can't figure it out. This year we added a new reservation system that has an integrated point of sale. Before, we just had an online reservation system. So something really exciting to me is all the data that's available to see what we need to be stocking in our store, what people are buying. It's showing us exactly what RV people are buying, what cabin people are buying, what tent campers want to see in the store. And so those are, to me, that's the exciting part of it.
And to kind of add to that on the excitement side, people have this mentality of thinking that CPAs are all boring and they stare at their feet and they bury their heads in books and have pencils behind their ears. And I'm part of the generation that's going to change that perspective of our industry. Some people get really excited about painting, about reading, about running. I get excited about numbers, and excitement is contagious. So my duty is to make the accounting world exciting. Now, I'm not going to tell you that debits and credits and depreciation rates are all really exciting, and I'm probably the only one who's going to get excited about tax laws passing and things like that. I get that. However, the impact of what accounting can do for people is the excitement that I want to pass along to them. When I can see somebody retire and pass along their campground to their kids, and their kids are successfully running this business and taking it even further than their parents did, that is the excitement of accounting. when I can see that somebody has retired from a job that they have hated for 20 years, and now they are able to take a deep breath and get up in the morning and go outside and see people enjoying themselves, see families having fun, that is where accounting can be very exciting to people. So my duty in the world is to make accounting exciting to all of my clients and to anybody that surrounds me. And I'm a member of another group of an accountants group, and most people think like, ugh, an accountants group, how terrible, you know, they must be all just ready to go to sleep. And I can promise you we're some of the most exciting people you'll ever meet. Now, some days, yeah, we can bury our head in a book, but numbers are exciting if you learn what to do with them. And my job is to interpret what those numbers mean and get people excited about what they're going to do with them.
So one of the big things that I've seen, obviously I'm on the marketing side of the business and the overall consumer trends, and we're in my belief, we're currently heading into the heyday of camping. You're seeing these massive demographic moves into the camping and RV space. You're seeing a lot of big money starting to move into the space. A lot of investors, a lot of well-to-do groups are coming in and buying RV parks. And you can see a lot of these large corporations, like if you look at Sun Communities, they're earning billions of dollars owning RV parks. So this isn't small business. And Jackie actually hit on something really important there with her comment about the family and who's doing what with the numbers. And so let's talk a little bit about how important these key indicators are on growth, where parks should be at, what numbers you're seeing both at your parks and for your client parks overall this season. I think overall we're seeing general growth in the industry. So what should a park owner who's watching this consider if they're looking at their accounting numbers and they're like, they can't make anything of it, they don't know what's going on? What should they be looking at to see if they're doing good or not good, and what should they expect? And Michael, you can go ahead and take that away if you want to lead.
Sure. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of things that you can look at. I really liked the comment that was made a little bit earlier about looking at year-over-year numbers. That's really important. It's really hard, especially if you're a park that has, as your very seasonal business, it's really hard to evaluate your progress by only looking at 30 or 60 days. But looking at a 12-month year-over-year comparison from today versus a year ago, that's really important from an overall financial and accounting perspective to look at. A couple of the things that we look at with some of our parks, we're definitely looking at reservations year over year, where our reservation percentages are, our occupancy rates. That's important. We're also looking at forward occupancy rates. That's because that's a really predictive indicator of how the future is going to go. So that's something that we're really looking at. And then one other thing that we've found that we're looking at more and more is the occupancy rates by site type. So whether it's just a traditional RV site or whether you've got 10 sites, but specifically owners are really interested in these alternative accommodations, things like cabins, yurts, covered wagons, things along that line. It's really interesting to note, and Mark, as you said, with the industry growing, we're seeing a lot of growth specifically in the alternative accommodations, things like cabins. Those seem to be growing really well, and our owners are really interested in saying, hey, look, is there a payoff? Is there an ROI into putting more of these expensive cabins into service? And so those are some of the indicators that we're looking at today with our parks.
So actually, let me ask a question on that. Is there a good return on putting those cabins and yurts in the parks? Are you seeing those numbers making sense? And then also there's a question from a user or one of our viewers the question is on what year should a new construction park really take off? So if you build the park today, at what point should it take off? Both on a financial side and whatnot. So I guess that would be maybe a cash flow question. If I put $1 million in, when should I get that return, or what should I be looking at? So those would be the two questions, I guess. So are you seeing really good returns on the alternative styles of camping, and then at what year should you start seeing a profit on that park?
Sure. I think that unfortunately the answer with almost everything accounting, tax, and finance is it depends, right? And so I would say that overall, we're seeing parks that are having pretty good ROI in terms of alternative accommodations. But again, it depends on what part of the country you're in. And there's certain types of parks, whether they're in more resort areas, more overnight areas, where it may or may not make sense. And so that has to be evaluated on a park by park basis. But overall, we're seeing fantastic ROI, especially in the Midwest, on a lot of the cabins, and really good ROIs on things like yurts, which have a lower cost, but the occupancy rates and the overnight stay rates are really solid. In terms of profitability or even cash flow for a new park, I would say it really is going to depend on the market that you're going into and the type of park that you're building. And this is why I would say, if you're in the market to build a park, or you're in the process of building a park, this is where looking at comparative data is incredibly important. Talking to other parks in the area, understanding the market, and really putting solid business plans together so that you can project out 3 to 5 years. I would not anticipate a park, and again, I don't know exactly what taking off means, but if you're talking about profitability, I would anticipate profitability probably taking 3 to 5 years to really get a solid profitability. But again, it's really just going to depend on your situation, circumstance.
And I'll add to that, with the alternative accommodations portion, we're seeing that the price of park models and cabins has increased a good bit. Supply and demand has hit their pricing. So those have increased a good bit from where they were even a year to 2 years ago. So you have to be careful in making sure that you have a good, solid investment plan when you buy these. And I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, I see people buying cabins, yurts, teepees, all kinds of alternative lodging without ever talking to their accountant to do the math first. It's an easy conversation. In our case, there's no charge to ask a question. It is part of our service to all of our clients. So if there's one thing I can suggest to campground owners, is have a solid relationship with your accountant and ask questions first. I often hear, we just bought a park model last week. Is that not something you, like a little buzzer should go off in your head that says, hey, I think I'm pretty serious about this. Maybe I should call somebody and ask. Have that conversation and know what you're doing before you make that leap. It's a nice, easy way to confirm a decision. And I always tell all campground owners, there are ways to make decisions. Most of them fly by the seat of their pants. We understand that as a part of the industry. However, take a couple of minutes and get some numbers to help confirm a decision. You'll be really surprised at what confidence that can give you in making decisions and how it can change your decision-making process. Okay, so I am seeing good returns on investment on the alternative lodging. However, I think you have to still spend that money wisely and have a plan before you do it. I am also seeing a tremendous growth in tent camping. And I'm not talking about throw them out back where we have an open piece of land under a tree. Design an area for tent camping, not $10 a night tent camping. I want to see $35 to $40 a night tent camping, depending
55
on.
at ours.
Pardon me?
55 at our park.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm talking a minimum there. And in resort areas or other more established parks, it shouldn't be that much cheaper than an RV site ultimately. You're using about the same amount of land, maybe a smaller piece, depending on how big your RV sites are. But if you're running water and electric, I know they're not consuming as much, but you've got opportunity costs that you're missing out on if that's not an RV site. So you can't go that low. Okay, that was answer to question number 1. So yes, do the alternative things, but know what you're doing before you do it. Have a plan. Okay, and then secondly, with the I forgot what the second part of the question was. Return on investment, and when should a new park take off? I am seeing a huge amount of variance, again, based on planning. If somebody is taking reservations and they're lining up their social media long before that park ever opens, they're going to be much further ahead than the guy who says, I got some land out back, I'm going to develop it, maybe I'll open next spring. You have to have all your ducks in a row, have a solid cash flow forecast in mind to let you know the worst thing that can happen to any business owner is they get almost to the top of the hill to profitability, but they don't have enough and they're the little train going backwards. You have to have enough money in your stove of what you can use to help get you over those humps. And you can't just plan on that you'll make it work. That's setting yourself up for failure.
And Jackie, based upon that, what are your thoughts?
In our area, we have a huge ROI on the alternative sites. The years have been huge. I don't know if it's because it's a new thing or because it's kind of cool that you can use them year round here in Minnesota. But that's been huge for us. But I have run into the exact same things Donna said, where the campsite owner has to put thought into it first. Don't just call us up and say, guess what I did this weekend? Well, I can't help you then. So it's kind of just doing things a little bit backwards. And I totally understand. They get excited. They get caught up in the moment. They found the greatest deal ever. But you have to think these things through because there may be other improvements that were on your agenda already. And now you're asking us to help you figure out how to get all those things paid for.
And actually, let me add a comment on that. So one of our clients is it's a park in Ohio, actually, Michael, and they just bought a travel trailer that they opened up. And they've had one on site forever, but they bought a new one. And we posted it on their social media page. And you think we're doing all this amazing social media posts. Do you know what post got the most comments and shares all summer long? That post that went up last week about the trailer. They booked that thing out the rest of the season by simply posting it up. And what it was people that owned RVs and camp already saying to their friends and family, hey, you can now go with us to this place. They have this thing. Check out the picture. So I'll just add that. That's what those alternative accommodations provide to the parks. I'll add, hey, first off, thank you everybody for watching this. We've got a great audience here on this group, so I'm glad that you're enjoying it. So the next question I want to throw out, and let's go really back to the basics. If you can map out the steps or the systems that they should have in place, you've already said the online reservations, number one. What other systems should owners have in place to make sure they're at least have the tools in place to properly do the accounting and bookkeeping for their park?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple of tools. One of the tools that we see that's very underutilized in the campground industry is just the simple budget, which is a budget, as everyone knows, is telling your money where to go. It's incredibly underutilized. A lot of people, I think Donna made the comment, they fly by the seat of their pants. That's exactly right. They call us after the fact and say, hey, look, we're doing X, Y, Z. And my question is always, is it in the budget? And if it is, then I'm happy. And if it's not, I'm not so happy. So having a budget, telling your money where to go before the year starts, incredibly important. I would also add that I would highly recommend you use some sort of automated tools to help you manage your accounting, your bookkeeping. Whether that is, whether that's QuickBooks Online or something similar, we recommend some sort of automated tool to help you do that. There's so much technology out there today that can really minimize the time that's needed to do your bookkeeping. A lot of people think about bookkeeping and they think about having to go back and dig through 6 months of receipts and look through shoe boxes. That's not what we have to do today. Today, if you're doing that, you probably are not as efficient and probably spending a lot of time you don't need to be. So we need to utilize technology. And so that's a huge part of what we do is just teaching owners to use the technology that's available today to make that process more efficient so that we can get more valuable data out of that bookkeeping information. So those are a couple of the tools that we would like to look at kind of right off the bat.
And I'll add in one more thing. With the automation and using technology, in our practice, we do not have our clients do accounting. We feel that's not their best use. That's not the best use of their time. A CFO of the campground should not be the bookkeeper and the janitor too. Most people wear a lot of hats, but this is one that I insist that they shed when they work with us. We do the accounting for them. We are keeping up with all the books and records, so we are in charge of those numbers. I know where they are so that when questions come up, It's not a matter of, well, let me go look at what you have and fix it, and then I can maybe give you an answer. I would.
Donna, let me jump in here real fast. So, what would, if say they don't have an accountant or a bookkeeper now, and they're watching this going, good God, I'm in trouble. What should they think about getting? And actually somebody commented, they said, I need a different accountant because they're not doing any of this stuff for me. So, I mean, is that the trick? And Jackie, Melissa, you can chime in on this too. Is the trick finding an accountant or bookkeeper who understands this industry? Is that one of the steps that they should add in there? Or what are the things that they can implement today to start grabbing a hold of this whole accounting and bookkeeping thing for their business?
I firmly believe when I talk with business owners, if they tell me I hate doing the accounting, it's 6 months behind, it's not getting done, this is something that has to be done. I'm not going to force a round peg in a square hole. I want to do the accounting for them, remove that burden from their shoulders, and have them go provide great customer service and look at the business as it needs to be run from an operations standpoint. I will help guide them on the financial part. The other tool that I find is a slam dunk for our owners is that we're using receipt capture. And all that means is every one of these owners and their family members who work in that campground have a cell phone. They live and die by it. We put an app on their phone. Every time they buy something, they snap a picture of that receipt. That's all they have to do. They don't have to code it. They don't have to tell me much unless it's something really weird that I wouldn't understand. They're going to snap a picture of that receipt. It will automatically come to me, and we will link it all into their accounting. We're doing two things there. We're providing a more accurate data coding, and we are able to help them audit proof themselves. So if they come up with an IRS audit in the future, if they have a fund sales tax audit, which I just finished off successfully with one of our clients, this makes all of that a breeze. Okay. So with those two tools, with having us do the accounting, having them just snap a picture of the receipt, and then I don't care, they can throw it away. They don't have to worry about filing anymore. Just get rid of the receipt. If we have a picture of it, it will last. That thermal copy of a receipt will not last you more than a year anyhow. So it's useless when it comes to an audit. So those two things for us are kind of a cornerstone of making our owners' lives easier and helping them focus on what they really want to do, which is not accounting.
I would just like to add to that, as an owner, I know that some people might think it is expensive to have an accountant. Knowing what I know, it's an expense well worth it to invest in an accountant that's going to work with you. However, I do my own accounting, and some of those tools that you were talking about, like snap a picture, that is available for do-it-yourselfers too. So if you don't feel comfortable, you aren't ready to relinquish control yet, that kind of bookkeeping is available with other online tools. The other thing that I don't think anybody has touched on yet is payroll. Do not try to do your payroll by yourself. Please. I mean, I'm a CPA of a long time, but payroll's not my forte. It never was. And there are also plenty of systems out there that will do your payroll, mail off your 941s. All I have to do is enter the hours each week, and it's well worth it. So I don't see some crazy IRS letter come in the mail that says you didn't do something you needed to do. Spend the money on a good system or an accountant to do that for you. That's going to take a lot of headaches off your plate and place them with somebody that knows what they're doing.
So Melissa, we have the two professional accountants on this board that serve the industry. If they don't want to work with them, if they want to do it themselves on that payroll piece, what should they look for? Where should they go? Where should they start?
Well, and I tried QuickBooks, and even as an accounting professional had some difficulty navigating and making it work with my program. So I chose another software that literally all I have to do is put in the hours that my employees work. I had to set them up and I have to have them fill out a W-4, and I just data key in that information. And then that program does everything else. I mean, everything. I don't send anything in. They do every form I need. And even, like I said, even as an accountant with a large accounting background, payroll was not something I ever did. And it was very intimidating to me. And so I think if I'm a numbers person, accountant, and it's intimidating to me, it's got to be intimidating to other people out there too. So I would just say, if you know what your limits are, if you're good at customer service and all of those other things, sometimes you have to say, you know what, I'm really not good at this. This is not what I'm good at. And I better leave it to somebody and pay for somebody to do that, to take that off my plate. It's just well worth it.
Okay, so that's some awesome information. There was a note from Donna. She mentioned about the taxes, and specifically like a local state sales tax. Taxes is actually a big issue for a lot of parks because they might not just have sales tax, but they might have a tourism tax. There's the audits involved and all that type of stuff. What is the biggest risk if your accounting and bookkeeping systems have failed or are failing to your business? What are those risks? Michael, go ahead and take it away with that answer.
Yeah, so the biggest risk that we often find, well, I mean, there's a lot of risks, but the biggest risk from a compliance standpoint is the burden of proof typically falls to the taxpayer in almost every situation. Meaning, when you get audited, so in Donna's example with her client, when her client got audited, it was up to her client to provide the documentation to support the position that they took on those sales tax returns. And so the same thing would be the case with your lodging or your hotel tax or your tourism taxes. The burden of proof is on you, the campground owner, the taxpayer. And because the burden of proof is on you, that means that the only way that you're going to ever prove your position, right, that you complied correctly, is that you have accurate books and records to substantiate the positions you've taken on any tax return. In the case of Donna, it was the sales tax return, right? But it could be any tax return. It could be income tax. It could be payroll tax. It could be any of those. And so you really need to make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed when it comes to those filings. You can do them yourself. That's certainly something that you can do. But once it starts getting to the point where you're unsure, you have questions, we always recommend seek a professional, whether it's an industry person or a local CPA or an accountant. Seek some help just in getting some guidance on doing those, especially if you're questioning what kind of documentation you need to have to substantiate your positions. So that's what I would tend to say in response to that question.
Okay, I'm back up here. So here's, and again, I'm going to be the dummy here. So I'll throw this one at Jackie first, Melissa, then Michael, and Donna in that order. So Jackie, Melissa, Michael, Donna. Here's the question for you being a dummy. If I'm running a park, I get a reservation in. So I collect the money on that reservation. I should have a reservation system to track that. The guest shows up. They book with me and they pay with a credit card. So now I have a merchant account. I need to account for that, right? So now I've got that money going to a bank account. At that point, I just need to worry about my expenses on the back end and cover taxes, and everything else is a profit. So that's a dummy question. I'm asking it because I honestly am just wondering. So Jackie, take it away. What is that cash flow process and how to track it from customer to bank account to taxes to profit?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's what it is. There's just a lot else that goes on behind the scenes. Like you said, if you pay with a credit card, you have to account for the merchant fees. So you're start there. There's your first expense with this one client that's come in. You're going to have to worry about your site, the maintenance on the site. So, for example, if you rent out your site for $1,000 for the week or whatever it is, you have to account for your maintenance on the site. If you provide all the mowing, the weeds, any firewood, you do have to account for all your expenses. So in a nutshell, what you said is correct. It's just keeping track of payroll taxes, if you have any local taxes in your area. So that $1,000 you took in whittles away pretty quickly. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize is they see the $1,000 and then they're like, oh, these employees are here anyway. Well, no, unless they went to spend hours and have as many campers there. It's kind of a catch-22 there, but of course you want more campers, and that does make your payroll costs go down because people are going to be busy on their little however many hours they work that week. So there's just a lot. That's one of the reasons why it's important to have a budget and to know your cost per campsite. I know a lot of people I work with, they didn't know the cost per campsite, and that cost may be different if you are just using a tent versus if you have fully electric hookup, and you just need to know how much it's costing you each time.
Okay, another thing that I can think of that is important when you're talking about that is that, like for our campground, we take reservations for next year. So depending on whether I'm a cash basis accountant, campground, meaning when that cash comes in, I count it as income today, or I'm an accrual basis, meaning I've got this cash in today, but that's not for a reservation until 360 days from now. So just because I put that money in the bank doesn't mean I should be spending it today. And so we choose to go on an accrual basis because we want to know how much money is a liability to us, meaning this money's been given to us, but the service hasn't been provided yet. So we need to not use that money, spend it on improvements in the campground, because we may have some of those costs for the campsites, the electricity, the maintenance, the payroll that income needs to pay for. So you just need to be, as an owner, careful about the money that you're taking in and applying it correctly to the period where it should be applied.
Yeah, that's a solid point. That's probably, if I could reiterate one thing to owners on this topic specifically, it's just what you just said. It's that because if you're taking advanced reservations that are in another calendar year specifically, just be aware that money may be cash in the bank today, but it's certainly not profit to you today. Because we see a lot of park owners robbing Peter to pay Paul between the years, and then they get to next year and realize the cash isn't coming in because the reservations have been made and they've already collected. So that's a solid point. The other thing that I would say is, Mark, in terms of tracing from reservation to end profitability, there's a lot of steps, as have been previously mentioned here, that go into making that happen. And what I can tell you is there's enough data that flows between different systems that I highly recommend you use technology, that you use a general ledger system like a QuickBooks Online, that you can use to be able to track the flow of your money. You can do it with a pencil and a piece of paper, but that's just a lot of work, a lot of time to do that. You can be successful, there's no doubt doing it. But in terms of overall efficiency, using some sort of accounting system to manage that flow of money is really important. The other thing that I would say is important to keep in mind, and this is the perspective that we bring to the table, is not just doing accounting and bookkeeping for parks, but we're also CPAs, and we bring that CPA lens to everything that we do, because we realize that there's something else beyond just the tracking and doing the accounting for the money itself. And that's the income tax obligations that may come along with profitability in a park. And beyond that, we're also thinking about a lifetime value for parks, as Donna said at the beginning, kind of understanding your investment and making sure that you're protecting that investment, thinking about estate planning as it relates to income taxes and profitability with your park. You really need to take a holistic view on finances in your park. And that's what we really find is where we're able to add a lot of value to parks.
And now I'll add something else from the cash flow perspective. The cash flow is the kind of the default mechanism that people manage a business by. And yes, you must have cash flow, but I urge you to kind of take that bigger picture from the outside in looking at managing the business. And I'm reminded, Mark, you do some great drone shots. Drone shots, they go up over the park and they look at the whole park, and you see a whole different picture than what you see when you're on the ground looking at an individual site. So I want to take the drone shot of that campground owner's life. And in that drone shot, the big thing that I see people miss, and surprises kill everything, is the tax liability. Now, the problem is that most traditional CPAs look at taxes in February, March, maybe April, May, June, all the way up to October. All right, that's too late. We are getting ready for our tax projections and planning starting at the end of this month. Right now is when you need to be looking at what is going to have to be paid next March or April, depending on how your entity is structured. You need to be looking at, is that entity still a valid choice? Is it the best one for me? Is there anything that I need to do between now and the end of the year to take advantage of tax strategies, to know what my liability looks like? Now, tax returns are not a once-a-year event. They are a day-by-day event. They happen a little bit every day of the year. Most people just choose not to look at them until next year when it's too late. My job is to look at the big picture, that drone view, and help a campground owner look at what their options are. I will first start off by telling them, if you keep going like you are today and what we've projected, you're going to owe X number of dollars at the end of the year. Here are 10 other things that you can do about it. We have 10 other strategies we can implement between now and December 31st. If you wait till after December 31st, your options are very minute. You can do an IRA, okay? But there is a whole lot. We talked about creativity in accounting and getting excited about it. This is my excitement point, getting those strategies in place that will make a huge difference. We talked about using an accountant. Yes, an accountant is expensive. And I will tell you, I'm probably the most expensive accountant that most of my clients have ever used. But I will tell you, when it comes to tax strategies, I will save them far more than the cost and give them a return on their investment in me. And that is a really, really critical point, that if you miss out on doing tax planning now, you're missing the boat. And that will have an extreme effect on your cash flow come next year when you have to come up with that money to pay it. And in my world, people ask me, well, how do I pay less taxes? I don't want to pay taxes. There's an easy answer for that. Don't make any income. You don't have to pay taxes if you don't make income. Now, I don't think that's a great solution. My goal is for you to make as much money as you possibly can and pay as little tax on that as I can possibly help you do legally. Okay, so looking at that tax liability and planning for it is a critical point to managing cash flow each and every day.
Actually, Donna, somebody asked or made a comment on your statement that said, but you don't get a dollar for dollar on tax return.
Depends what you're doing. Sometimes you do. Sometimes, if it's a matter of timing, you will get a whole different tax rate. If we're looking at timing, there are ADA credits for purchasing things that is a huge credit. And I see very little campgrounds take advantage of that when they really should. There are a lot of structure changes.
You mean like the ADA improvements, like the cabins or the pool? That's a really good point. Good tip.
Yeah, that's a huge thing that most campgrounds either never take advantage of or never tell their accountant that they bought those ADA compliant pieces of equipment or made improvements. Okay, so the taxes, yeah, we don't let the tail wag the dog when it comes to taxes. But the ultimate answer is, if I can lay out the choice for you now and say, if you do this, here's how much cash you'll need, but it'll save you this. You can make a choice. You may say, I don't want to do all of them, but maybe I'll do these 3 this year.
Very good point. Okay, so one of the questions that's come up in the group, this will be my next question to all you, is there's conversation about, and Donna kind of alluded to it a little bit, the structure of their business, how they're paying themselves, when they pay themselves, how that works out. Now, actually, and I didn't throw a caveat at the beginning of this. This is all just conversation purposes. Do not take this as tax advice. Contact your CPA or your lawyer for advice. I want to throw that legal disclaimer out there, just so you know this is a conversation purposes. Do not take this legal advice, and talk to your CPA or accountant to make before you make these decisions. So let's talk a little bit about paying themselves their park. So we're going to be finishing up here fast. So it really, if I've learned something from this, it's that the accounting and bookkeeping is important because that's what drives your business and your ability to operate your business. Is your money coming in, your money going out, and what you're earning. That ties into your ability to pay yourself and the value of your park, both short-term and long-term. So can you talk, and I'll open up to all four of you to kind of chime in for the final part of this discussion here. What are your thoughts about how to structure it and pay yourself, and how to really consider about the value of your park going long-term? And I'll go to Melissa first.
Dealing with this ourselves right in our own campground. So did one of the experts want to chime in on that for me?
I think you were muted for most of that. I didn't catch a lot of that. So did you want to repeat that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Out here in the country, we may have not a great internet connection. I was saying that is something we struggle with in our own campground. We're formed as an
yeah, you're cutting out quite a bit. But
go ahead, Michael.
Sure. So she was saying she was formed as an LLC. So I would say that just to be somewhat brief, there's legal issues that are involved in entity selection, and there's also tax and accounting issues that are involved as well. And so how you pay yourself is partially dependent on how you're structured from a legal perspective. If you're a corporation, if you're an LLC, and then we have options inside of those to pay ourselves as an S corporation, as an officer of the business on payroll, or as distributions. One of the things that we do with each park, and I think that every campground owner, if you take something away from this, you need to talk to your accounting professional, your tax professional, about doing an analysis of how you're paying yourself to make sure that you're paying yourself enough so that it covers you from an IRS limitation perspective, but that you're not overpaying and costing yourself tax dollars. And so this is the type of analysis that we conduct with almost every park that we work with, and looking to make sure that they're paying themselves appropriately based on the entity type that they have. And if their entity type is limiting them, we work with their attorneys to see if we need to get that switched to be able to maximize tax dollars.
And I'll agree with Michael on this. This is 100% dependent on how your entity is structured. So you need to look at how the entity is structured, whether that's the right or wrong perspective for you today. And if you set up your company 5 years ago, it might have been right then, but maybe it needs to change now. It's something you need to talk to your accountant about. This is kind of one of those issues of, like, if you won't go to your doctor, but you want to ask all your friends and say, my heartbeat, it seems irregular. What should I do? And you can ask all of your friends and you'll get all different answers. But really the only one that matters is you need to see the heart specialist to find out the answer to that. Okay. And I'll mention one other thing. There are a lot of people, especially in the past 2 to 5 years, who have purchased their campgrounds using Rob's plans through their 401k dollars that are invested in their businesses. You must tiptoe and go on a very straight line to follow the rules of the IRS to make sure that you are compliant there. So if you have a Rob's plan, please don't monkey around with how you should do things. Have a qualified advisor who understands those rules inside out. And I work with a lot of those, and as they've come on board, there are typically like some come to Jesus meetings that need to happen on how things are operating to make sure that they comply with all the rules, because that is a a very delicate situation. Okay, so I think, Michael, I'll answer for both of us on this one. This is not an issue we can give a boilerplate answer to. You have to have specific advice based on your situation and your entity structure to know the answer to that question.
Jackie or Melissa, you want to chime in anymore, or are you okay with what they said?
I was hoping that I could ask a question to the panel.
Okay.
If I could. Personally, for me, we are trying to find a way to let staff, not family, help us with some bookkeeping. And do you know, is there a way on QuickBooks Online, I've already asked them and they're not answering me, that I can give a staff member, and I think this might apply to other campgrounds, so I'm asking on this forum, I can give a staff member access to input data without letting them see my bank account and all of that? Can I have restrictions on what they can see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So in QuickBooks Online specifically, which is the platform that we have chosen to use with our parks, you can absolutely tailor the restrictions to the specific user. It's in your user functionality. In all honesty, with anything QuickBooks related, our answer is if you actually Google it or type it in YouTube, you can actually find tutorials on how to walk right through that process.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna pop back up here now. Okay, so we've hit the 1 hour mark. There was a question posted on here. Can we list the names of these great hosts and resources on the Facebook page? Absolutely, yes. We'll be on here, and all the members that have been on this group. I've took Jackie's place here, but Jackie, Melissa, Donna, Michael, thank you for your time today. Excellent information. I hope it was useful to all of you. This was something you asked for. They are all members of this group, so I'm sure they'll be willing to help when they have time and when they're available. So feel free to either private message them with your questions or post a question down below in this video feed. Also, if you like it, please hit the thumbs up button. It helps other people see this video. And let me know, did this format work? Obviously, there's some technical stuff going on back here, but I think I got it flowing pretty well. So now we know it's limited to 4, not 5. So just little details like that. But I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Jackie, for your time today. I hope you're all having a good day. We'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Thanks, Mark.